Welcome to the Dark Ascent podcast, where we illuminate the path to discovering your true will. This is episode 17, What is Your True Will? To learn more about our work, please visit darkascent.org. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Hi everyone, I am Meliktoth, and thank you for listening to our podcast. I'm here as always with my wife Eleonora.
Hello.
And today we are talking about something a little bit different.
You mean a lot different.
A lot different. Mostly triggered by a little experience we had last week.
Well, it sort of was prefaced by when you talked about, the god and goddess and the other.
Yes, well, I mean, it's been coming for a while, but this last week was sort of the...
climax?
Yeah, the breaking point, the tipping point of this whole thing. So I think I'll start out there a little bit with a personal experience, and then we'll get more into the topic. Well, the topic, of course, is your true will, and I'll get into what exactly that is. But first, I want to discuss last Friday.
It was the 3rd, May 3rd.
Yeah, last Friday, May 3rd. So Eleanor and I have been, studying Thelema. I've talked about Thelema here and there in these podcasts. And basically, Thelema it was started by Aleister Crowley. It's all about pursuing your true will. And there's a ton more to it. Just can't really put in a few words, but that's basically what Thelema is. It means will, literally. And I talked about that with, will and love and things like that. And I did mention the law of Thelema, so I remember that. So that's good. But we've been, looking into this, and this is not a new thing. It's something that I've known about probably almost since the beginning of my spiritual journey 20 years ago. When I really first got into ceremonial magic, I discovered Thelema, and I always had this connection with Thelema. But at the time, being 11, 12 years old or so, I didn't really have any way, and I'm not in a big city. I live now where I grew up. Not exactly, but in the same city. And there just wasn't anything around that really could teach me what I needed to learn. And at the time, there weren't many online resources. So over the years, I came back to it here and there. Every time I'd come back to magic, it would I'd get sucked in by Thelema. And the same thing would sort of happen, over the years, there were more and more online resources, but it's not exactly the same as just, as meeting with people in person and getting that kind of guidance personally. And I met Eleonora almost 10 years ago now.
It'll be 10 years in August.
Yeah. And a year later, I introduced her to Thelema, and she was fascinated by it. So it was sort of this thing that snaked in and out of our lives over the years.
I love the metaphor.
Yeah.
You said snaked.
Oh, snaked. Yes, that's good. So,
no, I mean because of the goddess.
Yes,
too.
I know. Yeah. So anyway, recently, we were kind of looking back into that, and
it was pretty tentative at first.
Yeah, and Eleonora was doing some research. She was really getting caught up by it. I was just sort of doing my own thing, and then she discovered that there is a local body of the OTO, which is the Ordo Templi Orientis. And so basically the OTO
Actually, you discovered it, I think.
Did I? Oh, yeah, maybe I did. Yeah, I looked it up. You asked me to look up if there's any local body.
Yeah.
And by local, I don't mean, unfortunately, not in our city. It's about an hour and a half away in Pittsburgh. We're in Johnstown.
It's a quick ride, though.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So I looked up and I found this local body of the OTO. So the OTO is a magical order dedicated to, the best I can say, is the promulgation of Thelema and the teaching of Thelema. It didn't start that way. It started as basically just a ceremonial magical order based on Hermeticism, which is, again, kind of off topic, but that's what it was based on. But Aleister Crowley, so the OTO started in the 19th century. Aleister Crowley came around, in the early 20th century. He started Thelema in 1904 by receiving the Book of the Law, which was channeled. And over time, he got into the OTO, and from the inside sort of changed it to be a Thelemic order. And now that's what it literally is, just that, and it carries forth his work. And so it was one of those things I knew about for years and years and years, and was like, oh, the OTO, that sounds pretty awesome. But, nothing was really close by. So we found one locally, relatively locally, and kind of figured, well, maybe we'll check it out, And now, we're both visually impaired, transportation's a little bit of a difficult thing. And so it was hit or miss whether we'd actually be able to get out there. We just sort of set the intention. We're both, especially me, I'm a huge manifester. I just set intentions for whatever I want and then
they just happen.
Expect it to happen, right? And it does. So I just set an intention. I'd like to go out there and check it out. And we sort of, it was, I think, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
That we discovered it. And I looked at the schedule, and they had a Gnostic Mass with live music, which really got my attention as a music person. We're both music people. Mm-hmm. On May 3rd. And now there was one even closer to when we looked at this calendar, but I said, wouldn't that be cool for our first experience of this Gnostic Mass, which I'll explain in a second, to be with this live music that they have. And it sounds like a cool experience. It sounds like a really unique experience. And so Eleanor was kind of impatient. No, I want to go. It was on, we looked on a Sunday, and the first Gnostic Mass was on the following Tuesday without the music. She's like, I want to go Tuesday. I said, okay, that might be so, but I think more realistic would be to wait a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And to go on the 3rd.
I was just excited.
She's like, no, I want to go Tuesday. Anyway, no, but I convinced her. And so we roped in my mother with bribing her with she can go to the casino while we're at this service. And so she drove us. And everything kind of fell into place. This whole weekend trip fell into place really easily. Our intention came to fruition. And so this whole thing worked out. So the Gnostic Mass is the public service of the OTO. And it's Aleister Crowley wrote it in, did they say 1913? Something like that.
I don't know, because it said Libra the 15th. So
it's Libra 15.
Does that mean the year?
No, it's just the number that was assigned to it.
Oh. Okay.
I think he wrote it in 1913.
Probably, yeah. Sounds right. I don't know.
And so he wrote this mass, and it basically is to symbolize the whole spiritual journey, and it's based off of the Greek Orthodox service, actually, but it's very not. Very not. It has a lot of sexual imagery. It's kind of crazy. And so it's the main, the central ritual of the OTO. It's the most important part of it. And, in fact, they have two parts of the OTO. They have the church, which is the EGC, Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica, mm-hmm. and the other part, the MMM, which I did not look up the meaning of, but it's basically the initiatory part of the OTO. And so, but the EGC is the church, the Gnostic Catholic Church is basically what it stands for, that performs the Gnostic Mass every few weeks to a month or whatever. It depends on the local body. But
some of them do it every week.
Do they really?
Yeah, some places do.
But that's sort of their central ritual that, and they even have a type of Eucharist sort of thing. But again, it's all, on the surface it looks Christian, and I was a little worried about that because I'm very anti-Christian, as was Crowley. So I think I really had nothing to worry about. He was as anti-Christian as you could get. He called himself the Beast 666, right?
Yeah.
So, but I was a little worried about that, but being there, it was not, you really couldn't tell. There are a few elements here and there that seemed sort of, it was based off of it, but a totally different entity.
The incense is what it really reminded me of.
Yeah, that's what got you a lot. And so, just briefly, because I don't want to make the whole podcast about this, but I promised on the mailing list I was going to talk about our experience with the Gnostic Mass, so, and it kind of fits in here. And so we went, on the 3rd, we went to, not really knowing what to expect, this local body in Pittsburgh, and Eleonora was super anxious about it.
I didn't grow up like Meliktoth did,
Yeah.
Free to believe what I wanted to and blah, blah, blah. I grew up Catholic, okay? Yeah. And I was very serious in my faith, or at least I thought I was.
Yeah.
At least externally.
Until I came along.
Yeah, wow.
I ruined it. Yeah, I corrupted her.
Well, I'm a very curious person by nature.
Yeah.
So, I think it was just quenched.
Yeah.
Growing up, and I had nothing to really ask about necessarily.
Yeah. And so, she was a bit anxious about it, but we went on Friday and we walked in, and like immediately the atmosphere was just super welcoming. Everyone was nice. There were like 20 people there, I think, around 20 people.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Came and went as, the night went on. There were two events. There was a lecture on music and ritual, and then there was the Gnostic Mass itself. And, but everyone, we are visually impaired. We not were. So
I would like to not be.
So they were very accommodating, and like someone literally sat with us throughout the mass and described what was going on in significant detail, and that was really nice of them. So, and people hung around us all night, which was just really nice of them. And so we went to the mass, and it was a really intriguing experience. Like, I really thought I was going to be bored. I was afraid I was going to fall asleep because I worked that day, and we drove for 2 hours and then checked into a hotel, went out to dinner. I didn't really get to take a nap or anything like I wanted to. And so I'm like, I'm going to fall asleep during this. I don't want to, but it's probably going to happen. And I totally didn't. I was very engaged the whole time.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be like, I don't know if you have experienced how sometimes like rituals can feel fake.
Yeah.
It was thrown together and, you can't really feel the energy. Especially because it's so new. 100 years is pretty new.
Yeah.
Over 100 years. 115 years.
Yep.
It's pretty relatively new.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I have had the same thing with different things. I've sometimes would look up like YouTube rituals of someone performing a certain ritual from ceremonial magic, and it would just be like, that seems really dramatic and fake.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't this whole ritual, which it really is a ritual. It really is just basically a group ritual, and you could feel the energy building throughout the whole thing, and it was very authentic, and everyone did an awesome job. The priest was really convincing, especially. He was like really, really good. And they had a priestess who was a guest, I guess, from out of town.
Yeah.
And they had a deacon and all that kind of stuff. There were like 5 different positions in the mass, but the whole thing was very powerful and really built up over time, and I was really impressed by it. So it was a crazy experience. I mean, it was not exactly what I was expecting. It was sort of more than I was expecting because see, I'm the type that doesn't need rituals. I'm sort of skeptical of rituals. Not skeptical as in they're not going to work, but skeptical as in why should I do them?
Yeah.
And that's been my practice for quite a while. I mean, I'm into, like Abraham Hicks with the law of attraction and the Sedona method I've been getting into, which I'm still into, obviously. And even in, magic itself, I'm just going to do it in my head because I can. It doesn't really matter. So I was skeptical I'm like, well, I'll go along with this, but is it really necessary? And I was surprised that I felt afterwards that it was necessary. Not that,
not necessarily like we're going to convert you.
No.
No, like the kind of necessary where it was like, I don't know how to explain it.
Like, it's not as though you need it to become enlightened or something, or need it to be happy in life. I mean, obviously there are tons of different paths and they're all valid and good if they work for you. But, I had posted a question in the Thelema group a few weeks prior where I literally asked, what's the point of ritual? What's the point of all this? Because, I just don't get it. And people had some answers, and they were more or less satisfying, but not entirely. I wasn't really that convinced overall.
No, you weren't.
And so I went to this thing sort of with an open mind, but not really believing it was that necessary. And it was really cool to have the experience and to really feel like, yeah, this had an effect on me,
Yeah.
This had a measurable effect on me that I can feel, that I can sense, spiritually. Not to like get a goal or something, not down to earth like that, but a more spiritual kind of just evolution.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
It felt like an evolution. That's so funny. You took that word right out of my mouth.
It felt like this spiritual evolution where you were advanced in some way.
Yeah, and it felt like it was very subtle to me, but that sometimes is more powerful.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
some religions or rituals, they're very like in your face.
Yeah.
But this was very subtle, very gentle, but sometimes gentle is not gentle. Not really.
Right, yeah. So, I'm opening up to rituals more, and I'm introducing them a little bit more into my personal practice. Again, for goals, I'm good with just doing it in my head. But for spiritual practice, I've been the type, always been very Eastern, like just meditate, just be mindful. Like just.
I was just going to say that too.
Yeah.
Like that you were into, this is really creepy.
I've always just been just meditate and everything will be good. You don't need to do anything else. But, I don't remember where I read this or where I heard it, but from a Western context, it's important to have practices that meet us where we are with our paradigm.
Remember, I think that was in the Thelema group.
Yeah, it might have been.
That someone said that, the Western, like, it's hard to take the Western, like, to be Western and do Eastern stuff.
Right.
Because we're not in that culture.
We're not in that culture.
It's like trying to expect a Hindu to, I don't know,
because I remember,
pray or something.
I remember years ago, I really tried to take on the Hindu culture because I really loved Eastern philosophy and Eastern practice. I love meditation and that kind of stuff. Very non-dual. So I thought, well, if all that stuff comes from Hinduism, maybe I should try to like take on the whole religion. And it just didn't really work because I didn't come from that cultural context, and I felt like I was trying to learn a whole culture, and that didn't really work. And we have a whole rich Western culture of spirituality, of magic, and that kind of thing that, yes, a lot of it has been borrowed from the East, but we've added a lot of our own stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is ritual and symbolism and that sort of thing. And so, in a certain sense, I think it can be helpful. Is it absolutely required? Probably not. But I think that it can definitely be helpful.
And can advance you very quickly.
Yeah. And, something I read afterwards was that every ritual, you should never do a ritual just because someone tells you to.
No.
Every ritual, whether it's the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, or whether it's, there's another one called Liber Resh, where you kind of observe the stages of the sun as it goes through the day and that kind of thing. Whatever it is, you should never just do it because someone says, yeah, this is a good ritual to do. You should do it because it's going to help you and learn the actual reason it will help you, which essentially is that it helps you to go beyond your mind. It helps you to tap into your true self and to go beyond normal consciousness. And for me, that's pretty easy to do on a daily basis, but for a lot of people it's not. It's just I've been meditating for years. I've had a lot of awakening experiences, but it is still helpful, I think, to do that kind of thing. Even for me, I think it can be helpful. I'm still sort of exploring this, so I'm not totally set on it, or I haven't really explored it extensively as of yet, but I can see how it can be helpful. So this whole experience was really transformative because it really showed me, maybe there's more I can add onto my practice. Maybe I can open up to this, especially this Gnostic Mass. It's not something you have to go to. It's just something that's kind of enjoyable. And people came from hours away. There was someone there from Buffalo, which is like
Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, Buffalo, New York, 3 or 4 hours away. There are people there from all around. And it's just something that people enjoy. They get a lot out of it. And
no one is forced to go.
No one's forced to
and
go.
That's what makes it more meaningful, because you do it because you want to, not because someone says, you are sinning.
Yeah, you must go or you're going to go to hell.
Yep.
No, it's nothing like that. It's all, that's what I love about Thelema, is that it's do what thou wilt, which ties into our actual topic, which we'll get to in a second. But it's do what thou wilt. And no one is ever going to tell you. I was looking up, because I'm really interested, we're both looking to joining the OTO, and I was looking up, I think yesterday, and there was a FAQ sort of thing I found.
Oh, you didn't tell me about this.
Yeah, I didn't tell you about it yet, but one of the things said, are there any required beliefs? And it said, the only required belief is that, in the book of the law, and you don't feel like you need to change any part of it. Now, you can interpret it any way you want to. The Book of the Law, again, the thing that Crowley was channeled, it's a 3-chapter
Why the heck would
book.
you want to change it?
Right. Well,
it's too beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you believe that, that's it. You know, you're a Thelemite. You can join the OTO if you want to. You don't have to. But that's all that's required. You can hold any beliefs you want to that don't contradict that. You can interpret it however you want to. No one's going to tell you, this is what this verse means. You know? There's a verse in the Book of the Law, something like, the only sin is restriction or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not quoting it exactly. But there's no sin, there's no law besides do what thou wilt. And in fact, that is a verse. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. In chapter 3, verse 60, I think it is. And
verse 60?
Yeah.
You said it so fast.
Sorry. And so that's all it is. So no one's going to tell you you have to be at this event, or you have to do this ritual, or you have to do that, or you have to believe this. It's all very personal. I like that because I'm so very personal. I'm so very unique in my own practice, you know. So both of us are looking to join both the EGC and the OTO itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our experience with the Gnostic Mass. It was an astonishing experience. It was really cool though. And we'll have plenty more like that, I'm sure. But I just wanted to share essentially what that was like, you know, as we get more into these topics with these podcasts. I mean, we've already been getting into it, but I just wanted to give sort of an introduction to what exactly happened and what we experienced. And
it was the craziest, and I didn't want to experience it either. Like, I didn't want to like it. I mean, I did, but you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to admit that there was something there.
Yeah. Nor did I.
Yeah. And it was like against our will, like, darn it, I feel something.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to feel something.
Right.
But I feel something. Shit.
For me, it was like, I was pretty happy with just the Sedona method and Abraham Hicks and law of attraction and just simple, stuff I've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I've talked about spirit communication and that kind of stuff, and that's whatever. But I've been pretty happy with just my own simple little practice. But this really awakened something beyond all of that that I think can really help me.
Yeah.
And I'll be weaving it into our podcast for sure. It's not something that, I don't expect anyone to believe anything specific, obviously, but it's just something that will be in the background here as, my purpose, is to help people to discover what their true will is and then to follow it.
Yeah.
And that's what Thelema is about, essentially. It's just, what is your true will? There's this ritual, even before you eat, it sort of kind of reminds you of like grace or something like that. But it's called will. And it's just, what is your will? So literally it goes like, what is thy will? It is my will to eat and to drink. To what end? That I may fortify my body thereby. To what end? That I may accomplish the great work. And the great work is to do your will. So it's just always bringing it back to doing your will. It
was just so cool. And technically, like, you say it back and forth.
Yeah, it's a dialogue. With someone. Right. But it's always bringing it back to just doing your will. And you know how much will is important in the way I see things. So it really fits in. But that's what all this is about. So hopefully that's an interesting experience. I just wanted to discuss that a little bit. And we'll be talking a lot more about that, I'm sure. Because we're, in fact, in less than 2 weeks from when this will be up, this podcast will go up. We're going back to that group on the 21st and getting baptized in the EGC, believe it or not.
I know.
Which is just sort of like okay, we're going to check it out and see what happens. And then, see how it goes from there. It's a cool group, so we're looking forward to it. So we'll have plenty more to report.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll be kind of interesting and fun, I think. So getting to your true will, which is what all this is about, your true will, the only law in Thelema is do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. And people mistaken this all the time as, oh, that means you can just do whatever you want. No, that's not what it means. And I mentioned this already, but, Gerald Gardner, who started Wicca, he stole so much from Thelema. I've been realizing, like, just a quick aside, I never knew where, in Wicca, they always say, so mote it be at the end of spells and stuff like that. And I'm like, where does that come from? Did you just make it up? No, he stole it from the Gnostic Mass. It was literally, we said it at the end of, there were these 11 Calyx, is that how you pronounce
Yep.
it? Yeah. During the Mass, which is, on different things, birth and life and death and marriage, and not in that order at all.
It goes through your life cycle.
Yeah, it's all these different important things in life, and they just talk about it. And at the end, we say, "So mote it be." And I'm like, oh, he totally stole from this. Because Gardner came later. He started Wicca in the late 1940s or early 1950s. And, oh, that's where he got that. And, the Wiccan read, and harm none, do what you will. Well, he just took do what thou wilt and added a little clause, as long as it doesn't harm anyone, because we're all light and fluffy here in Wicca, But he didn't realize doing your true will never harms anyone, unless, if you read the Book of the Law, it's very particular, very strong on this point. Unless someone gets in your way, then they may be harmed.
But not because you want to hurt them.
Not because you want to hurt them, just if they get in your way, then you have you have permission to harm them. It's a lot like, there's so many parallels between Thelema and Satanism, except Satanism sometimes, like as LaVey taught it, I think goes a little too far.
Yeah.
But if someone gets in your way, you have no right but to do your will. We're going to be changing the intro for Dark Ascent, and as I'm thinking of it right now, we're going to be reading this verse from the first chapter of the Book of the Law, which literally says, "Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that, and no other shall say nay." So that's your only right. You have no right but to do your will. And so if someone gets in the way of that, then, it may just happen that they are harmed somehow, but that's not your fault, But if everyone does their true will, every man and every woman is a star is one of the central tenets. And so if everyone is doing their true will, you're not going to clash with anyone. You're not going to harm anyone. And that's just sort of how it works. So you don't need to add "and harm none," silly Gardner, because it's sort of already in the premise of do what thou wilt. It's not just do what you want, have at it, go forth and just do whatever you want to do in the world. It's not that. It's just find what in fact, half of the whole thing is find what your true will is and then do it. And you have no right but to do your will. And so your true will is, again, not just whatever you want to do. It is the whole reason. You could call it a life purpose. You could call it, your destiny, whatever you want to call it, but it's the whole reason why you're here. And so the whole purpose of Thelema, whether you do it in the traditional rituals of Thelema or not, it doesn't really matter, but the whole point of Thelema is discover your true will and then carry it out. If you don't know what your true will is yet, then your true will is to discover your true will. So that's what it is. But it's your purpose. It's what you do, what you're meant to do in life. And so there's sort of, I talk a lot about will, and there's sometimes people think there's a contradiction or a paradox between my will and God's will. By God's will, I mean like the will of the universe or the will of the all or Tao or whatever. And there's not, because if you're following your true will, you are in perfect harmony with the universe, with the all. You're in perfect harmony with that. And so you're never going to contradict it. You're never going to oppose it if you're doing your true will. It's sort of like there are, who knows how many stars, billions of stars in the universe, and they all have their own orbits, they all have their own paths, and they do what they do, but their will, you could say, their path doesn't contradict the will of the universe. It is the will of the universe.
Yep.
Expressed as that individual star, or planet, or any kind of body, whatever. So your true will doesn't contradict. You don't ever have to worry about that. Like, what if my true will contradicts with, what the universe or my higher self thinks I should do? No, it doesn't happen like that. Your true will is sort of your DNA, your innate built-in program of what makes you happy, what you're meant to do. And I've, this is, again, I've known about Thelema for a long time, so it's sort of been in my belief system for a very long time, both from knowing about Thelema and studying it, as well as just my own personal experience. But I've noticed that as people become closer and closer to their true selves as they become enlightened, or as they awaken to who they are, or, just discover more about themselves, everyone sort of carries on their own path.
Yep.
There are no two people that are exactly the same. No two teachers. If you look at, let's say, as an example, enlightenment teachers, they all teach something different, but yet their messages are they're reconcilable. They work with one another. They don't contradict, but they're different. They have different focuses. So, like Byron Katie has a different true will, has a different expression for her purpose than I've mentioned Lester Levinson before, who is different from, Jeff Foster's another one of my favorite teachers who's different from anyone else. I mean, there's tons of them. And they're all different in their expressions, but they don't really contradict. I mean, there might be minor details where they contradict, but the overall message is the same. And so I've never really, I think it's valuable sometimes to follow a teacher, but I think there's always the point where you differ from that teacher, because your will is not their will, because their will is their will. No one else can have their will. No one else can have your will. And so as you learn from a teacher, you learn what you need to learn, and then you move on. You discover your own orbit. You discover your own true will, because you can't just be a copycat of them. And I've seen this in my life where, for a while I'll be like all about Byron Katie. Like, oh, she's awesome. Her method is the truest, and it's the most effective, and she's great and whatever. And so my teachings are sort of a copycat where I'm really just teaching the work. But after a while I'm like, oh, well, there's this way I can extend it. There's this way I can expand it, or I can integrate it into a larger whole. And then it's no longer her. Now it's me. And then I go on to another teacher. Okay, let's say the Sedona method,
This just happened.
This just happened, with Hale Dwoskin, who does the Sedona method. And I love it. It's awesome. And then I heard him say something like, you may or may not get your goals. And that's not true. You will get your goals. And I literally asked him, I'm taking a course with him, like in a group setting, asked the guy himself, you said in this recording, you may or may not get your goals. And he said, well, it'll tilt things in your favor, but, you may let go to such an extent and then the goal dissolves, or you may let go and you get it, but it tilts it in your favor. And, he said all goals are lack. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're not all lack. And I didn't argue with him on the call, but I don't want to be rude, but I'm like, no, the goals are not lack. I mean, the way most people do it, it appears that way, but goals do not have to be lack. And he said, you may or may not get them. Especially
if those goals are in alignment with your true will.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So then you kind of need your goals to accomplish your true will.
Right, exactly.
And I almost just said awakenment.
Awakenment?
Is enlightenment really discovering your true will?
Probably. I think it's the beginning of it.
And I don't mean like a little bit discovering it. I mean really.
Really discovering it.
Discovering it. Like 100% discovering it.
Yeah.
Is that what enlightenment really
Possibly.
is? That you're so into it, you're so confident. Not even confident. That's not even the right word. But you are so in tune with it. Yeah, that you just, everything falls away because all that's in front of you is your true will.
Yeah. And so, when he said that, I just internally, I said, no, that's not true. I know that's not true. Not because I don't want it to be true, mind you. Really. I'm very honest with myself. Not because I don't want it to be true, but because I know it's not true from personal life experience.
And experience is different for everybody.
Right?
So for him, he doesn't care about them.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't really care about goals. He's just whatever.
Right, because he's like that. But that's, not everyone has the same truth either.
Right. And I hear people all the time who say, I've gotten everything I've wanted.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And especially for people who believe they get what they want. I mean, they, what they believe comes true. So what they believe they get what they want, and they get what they want. And so that was the point where I differed. Now I still use the method. I love the method.
Yep.
But I don't agree with that part of it that says you may or may not get it. You may or may not get the goal. And I say, yes, you will get the goal. Yes, you will get the goal. You will at least get the essence of the desire. That's another topic for another day. But
like sometimes it's not. I mean,
people have free will, and things can be a little different. But you know,
and sometimes it's not like we think it's one thing, but then it's like, oh, I wanted this.
Right. And the universe knows those things.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you will get the goal. So that was my point of departure from him, from that method, which is okay. And then, you know, I really like Abraham Hicks as well. And they're another tool in my toolbox, so to speak. And in fact, I think they're much more goal positive than is the Sedona method.
Yeah.
On the surface, the Sedona method looks goal positive because they say, yeah, you can, if you look at their marketing, they say, yeah, you can have everything, you can be a millionaire, you can do blah, blah, blah. But, and he literally said in this recording that I was criticizing, he literally said, yeah, our marketing says on the website you can have it all, but really, you may or may not. I'm like, well, that's lying.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you just admitted that you lied in a sense. Like, you roped people in with that promise they can have anything, and then you kind of tell them, no, actually, maybe not.
Oh my God.
So, you know, but Abraham Hicks is much more goal positive. And in fact, they are all about creating from joy, not from need, not from lack, but from joy.
Yep.
And now I don't agree with everything they say either. I have lots of points of departure from them. And
but
in fact,
essence is...
Yeah, their essence is very true. You know, like Abraham would not say like you need a religion. They would just say, you know, this is it. Like their teachings and manifestation.
I don't know why I don't like their energy. I think it's because I get the essence and I don't need the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. I love listening to it, and it really keeps you... I really feel a lot more joy when I adopt their philosophy, that I can just have anything and that, you know...
I'll take the philosophy without the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, I'm dragging you along to one of their workshops one of these
days.
That's fine. So. But, you know, my point is that I've followed all these different teachers, and I agree with a lot of them, and then I depart from them in some critical way and come into my own true will. My true will has been clarified more and more and more and more and more over the years. You know, I discovered a lot of it was with the law of attraction 4 years ago almost, where I started teaching people how to get what they wanted. And then over the years, I realized there was a deeper part that was kind of missing. And that was my exploration last year in 2018, where I realized there was a deeper part that just wasn't coming through. There was something missing in what I was doing with just the law of attraction. And so that's when I started to delve into magic. And I really feel as though with all of this that I've been talking about, I've discovered that, you know, with the different spirits, with the different gods, with the different rituals and practices, that really adds in that missing element and makes me a lot more satisfied. So my true will has been getting clarified for years, you know, which will happen. But I think, I mean, that's a natural process. But you're never going to be a copycat of another teacher. You're never going to have the exact same purpose as someone else, the exact same true will as someone else, because you're your own person. And so I've seen that personally in my life, as I depart from these various teachers, that my own true will becomes clarified and refined over time, which is itself my true will. I mean, it's all of our true wills to discover what our true will is. So, you know, you see a lot of people in the world who seem to lack purpose, and a lot of people feel like they lack purpose. And I truly believe everyone has a true will. Now, it may not be something grandiose, it may not be this big, huge, wonderful thing. Here's what I want to say, though, because I know for me, if I would hear that, that would give me a lot of insecurity, because I've always wanted my true will to be a big, wonderful, grandiose thing.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is that if your desire is for your true will to be big and grandiose and wonderful, then it will be, because you wouldn't have that desire unless that was your true will.
And you might have a desire to be the best manager of McDonald's out there.
Right. I mean...
And if you love it, and if you're good at it, and if it brings you complete joy, then there will be a legacy anyway.
Exactly. So not everyone, you know, some people are satisfied with something. When I say small, I'm not criticizing it, just smaller on scale and in scope.
And note he said satisfied, not settling.
Right. Yeah, they're satisfied. They're happy with it. Not everyone wants to be a multimillionaire and teaching, traveling the world, teaching their philosophy or whatever. Not everyone wants that. You may want that. I may want that. But not everyone wants that. If everyone wanted that, then who would do all the other jobs? I truly and honestly believe that if everyone did their true will, everything would be taken care of perfectly. There are people for whom their true will, their literal passion in life is like sanitation, like taking out garbage.
Yeah. Or cleaning a home.
Or cleaning a house.
I know. I have a friend, I think you'll know who I'm talking about. That's her passion. She was my favorite house cleaner.
Yeah.
And she would come in, she knew how to organize everything, and she wanted to have a business where she cleaned and organized because it's what she loved to do.
Right. There are people for whom their passion is being a janitor,
Oh, yeah, people love it.
There are people for whom their true will is being a teacher or working, in retail or at a restaurant or at McDonald's, as Eleanor said, or any number of things. And if no one had that true will, then we'd figure out a way around it because, we have no right but to do our will. So the universe would figure it out. Right? So there's always someone to fill in that spot. Just because it's not your true will, it doesn't mean it's no one's true will. Right. And so the biggest thing is not to force yourself into a role where you feel like this should be what I want to do, but it's not. This is the responsible thing to do. This is the correct thing to do. This is what society has impressed on me to do, like default reality, like we talked about many months ago. This is what I'm meant to do according to my family, according to my culture, according to my religion. This is what I have to do. Why do I hate it then? If you hate it, it's not your true will. I just feel like people need to really hear that. If you hate what you do, it is not your true will.
And you will be so unhappy the rest of your life.
And not only is it not your true will, but you are actually sabotaging your potential, your level of success, by trying to fit that square peg into a round hole and trying to force yourself into a role that is not your true will. By trying to, let's say, go to medical school because you feel like you have to in your family, everyone in your family is a doctor. Or trying to have the traditional 9-to-5 job because that's what you're supposed to do and you're supposed to be a responsible adult. Or whatever it might be. You are sabotaging your success by not following your true will. If you were to follow your true will, you would be far more successful than in any other role. And by successful, I mean your image of successful. Not everyone wants to be a multimillionaire with a yacht and a private jet, and not everyone wants that life. No. That'd be awesome. I know I will be one day. Innate knowledge has always been there, but I'm still discovering. I was talking. Sounds so just random. I was channeling Satan a few weeks ago, and I said, why isn't it faster? Like things are really moving, but why is it not faster? He said, you're still stepping into your true will. You don't know it all yet. I said, yeah, that's true. I see that. So for me, it's still unfolding. It's still developing. I don't have it all figured out. I mean, you never have it all figured out, but I'm still figuring out some of the details. I'm still stepping into it and embracing it. But you will be more successful doing your true will, even if it seems like something unlikely or that, not societally traditional or whatever. You'll be more successful doing your true will than doing anything else, than being a doctor or a lawyer or a programmer or an engineer or, whatever else that you think you need to do to be successful. Even if that field, oh yeah, they make tons of money in that field. Well, you can be more successful doing your true will than anything else.
And doing your true will, even if you are something that other people wouldn't consider successful, a manager at McDonald's or a janitor, people will, if you really love it and, you're really stepping into it, you will be talked about after your death.
Exactly. Right. People know when someone is coming from a place of joy.
Yeah.
And purpose and passion, you know. So your true will is your highest level of potential.
And if you don't do it, it could really make you physically sick and depressed.
Oh, yeah.
My mom worked for this place for a long time, and she was doing a type of counseling that she never really wanted to get into. And I kept trying to tell her, you need to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And it never happened, and she never really tried either, you know.
Yeah.
But finally, she got a job, just got a job, where she will be doing mental health counseling, which is what she's always wanted to do. And I said, and I told her this last week, you're not going to get tired so much.
Yeah.
Because she has been dragging. And I think she had some depression.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I said, I think this is going to make you so much happier. So we'll see if I'm right.
And it was the same for me, where every time I tried to fit myself into the mold of what people thought I should do, I felt depressed, I felt anxious, I felt miserable. Yeah. And, you know, to some extent, I'm still sort of, because I really, truly believe I'm not meant to do like a traditional 9-to-5 job, being a programmer and all that stuff. I mean, I enjoy programming. I think that's part of my path, but not the primary part of it. I have so much else I want to do. So, but that's, you know, it's something that I'm doing until I figure that out. But every time I've tried to surrender to, yeah, this is what I have to do, this is, you know, what a responsible adult does, I just get depressed because, you know, it's like a fish out of water. You're not, you know, it's like if you imagine a fish watching someone on the land walking around, and oh, well, they're walking around, maybe I should try to get up and walk around, and they try to get out of the water and flop around, and why isn't it working? That's sort of what it feels like.
Except for the Little Mermaid.
You ruined all of my metaphors.
But her true will was not to be in the water, it was to be on land.
Yes, there you go. Her true will was different. Okay, a traditional, non-magical, non-Disney fish.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Oh my god. So, a non-magical, non-Disney fish, it's their true will to be in the water.
Yes.
And if they try to be on land, they're going to feel it. They're going to suffer.
Or look at Finding Nemo, even.
Yeah.
Like where this father fish looks all over the ocean for his son because it was his true will to do that.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that movie for like 15 years. I don't know. But 14 years, I guess. Anyway, but that's, you have to do your true will. Yeah. As I said, you have no right but to do your true will. And if you do that, you will be. Not maybe, not perhaps, not possibly, not if the universe feels like it. You will be successful according to your definition of success, not according to your mother's definition of success, or your father's definition of success, or a teacher's definition of success, or anyone else's, but your definition of success. What does success mean to you? That's the question.
So you have to realize that not everyone's going to approve.
Yes.
And it's something I'm working on too.
Yes.
Because I'm a huge approval junkie.
No, really.
Okay. You know that, but not everyone else does. But, like, you have to be okay with someone not being happy with you.
Yeah.
You know? And getting upset at you and being all juvenile about it.
Absolutely. So, it will be according to your definition of success, but you will be the most successful by doing your true will. How do you discover your true will? I mean, that's only your whole life's journey.
Really look at yourself. What passion, what do you love to do? That's where you start.
Yeah.
What is one thing you absolutely love to do? I don't care if it's video gaming.
Right.
Maybe you can design them. I don't know.
And also, don't try to figure it out.
No.
You know, it's not something you have to figure out tomorrow. You probably won't figure it out tomorrow. It's something that will unfold over time as you're ready for it. I tried to force myself into what I thought my true will was for several years, and it didn't work because I wasn't ready for it. I didn't really know what it was yet. I just wasn't there. I wasn't prepared. And so, you know, it didn't work, but let it unfold to you. And the one thing I will say is that, you know, I'm taking a sort of challenge this month to not make decisions from ego. And this is something I think could probably be a whole different topic, but I'll at least introduce it. So in studying the Sedona method, as much as I was criticizing it a little bit, but as much as I've been practicing it, I've come to learn, I've come to see and believe for myself that when the ego tries to make a decision, more often than not, you just result in misery, in pain. The ego makes decisions because it should do something, or because, other people would approve of it more if it did this thing, or it would gain control over a situation, or it'd have more security if it did this thing, or whatever. I mean, it has all sorts of different reasons. The ego is that part of you that, that little I, that separate part that seems to be doing its own thing in this world, right? And that part just can't make reliable decisions. So what I found is that when I let go of decisions that seem to need to be made, and I mean any decisions. I mean, I've tried this on what are we going to have for dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And things have just happened.
You're a lot better at it than I am.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. But releasing the decision, something as simple as, can I let go of trying to figure it out? Can I let go of trying to make a decision? And just letting it unfold. And one of two things will happen. Number one, something will just happen without you needing to make a decision at all.
Yeah, that always happens to us.
So something as simple as like today, and I wasn't even thinking about dinner yet, but we got a random text from a family friend. Hey, do you want to go to Red Lobster? Oh, sure. Well, I don't need to make a decision anymore. I mean, I had to say yes to that, I guess, but it sounded good. It was sort of an obvious thing.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah, it was really good. So something will just happen that will negate the need for the decision, or inspiration will arise in such a powerful way that the decision becomes obvious. So if it's like, I don't know, should I do this or should I do that, or should I do this or should I do that, and you're deliberating about it, well, your true will is one of those, or maybe something else entirely. So let it go, release about that, and the actual true decision will arise into your consciousness. It'll become so obvious that, oh, yeah, okay, we'll just do this. And that can happen a lot too. So those, one of those things will happen. But I found that when you can just let go of letting the ego try to make decisions and let the deeper part of yourself make the decisions, or it's not even decisions at that point, follow your true will becomes obvious. And it's not this big picture. You don't know what your life's purpose is, but you know the next step. And that's really all that matters. And the big picture will unfold. But if you just know the next step, that's really all you need right now. And I was just thinking about Abraham would really say the same thing, just in different terms, where they would say, well, don't try to make a decision from a place of, doubt, or a place of like a negative emotion. Like, get into a more positive space, and then you'll know what to do. So that they sort of say the same thing. This is across teachers, like everyone says pretty much the same thing, like I said. But I found that if you can do that, then your true will unfold naturally. And this isn't the only thing you can do, but it's a really powerful little technique to just let life unfold in a natural, ordered way. And, it's really powerful. And I've been practicing this for a few weeks. And, like when we decided to go to this OTO thing, it was just sort of one of those things where I said, well, I'll just put the intention out there because I think I'd like to go. And if it happens, then obviously it's my true will. And if it doesn't, then it's not. Right? And everything fell into place. I called up my mother and I said, hey, what do you think about a weekend trip? And she said, sure. What do you want to do? And I told her about the service I wanted to go to, or Eleanor and I wanted to go to. Mm-hmm. And I said, we'll give you money for the casino. And she said, okay. And then she roped in our family friend to going also, so they could go together, which actually kind of worked out better.
Yeah, it did. And
the whole weekend just sort of fell into place. We found the perfect hotel. We got a really good rate for it. Everything just worked. I took a half day off of work, and that was no problem, obviously. And everything just sort of fell into place in the perfect way that it was just obvious. Yeah, this is my true will. This is good. This is what I'm meant to do right now. So, and that's different. I don't want to say surrender everything. If you have a will that you know what your will is, then that's your will. But I'm saying if you have a decision where you literally don't know if you want to do this or that, let it go and it'll come up. It'll arise naturally, what you should do. It'll just happen almost through you. So that's one little trick that I sort of discovered in my own life for letting your true will unfold for you naturally, even in the smallest of situations. Like I said, I've done this about what to have for dinner or anything else like that, whether to take a trip or not. Like in that situation with the OTO, it works for anything. So that's something I would try out. But, discovering your true will, it's not something you do overnight. It's something that is a lengthy process. Now, if you already know it and you're living it, then great. And some people are. And I used to get really jealous. I'd see these, coaches on Facebook or something that talk about how they make like $100,000 every month or something, or I don't know, and how they're living their dreams. They're traveling the world, and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's cool.
Good for you.
But I'd get sort of jealous of them and think, well, why aren't I doing that? But they discovered their true will, and it was working for them. But you can't just, and the thing is, they'll tell you, apply these 5 steps and you'll be able to live the same life. No, you won't.
No,
you won't.
Because everyone has a different true will.
Yeah.
And a coach, if the coach is actually any good, will help you find out what your true will is.
Exactly. They won't try to force you into their template, into their way of doing things that work for them. You have your true will, and they will help you to discover that. And so, it's everyone gets there differently, but I find that as you get there, as you discover what that is, then your success will increase. But be patient with it. I've been trying to discover mine all throughout my 20s, and now I'm 30. And to some people that might seem really young still, and it is, but to me it's been a long time. So, it could take years. It doesn't have to. My way was very indirect, very wandering, because I had a lot to learn, I think, and I didn't really know. I had a lot of insecurity that I had a true will that I really wanted. I always felt as a child that I had this great purpose that I wanted to carry out. And this is why I gave my disclaimer earlier, because I felt like I had this great purpose. And then over the years, I just became more jaded and more skeptical. And I said, well, what if I don't have a great purpose? What if I don't? What if I'm just meant to have a 9-to-5 job and do nothing but work, and that's it? And so it was this fight between, no, I want to do something great, and no, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll fail. What if I fail? And I'm, I have to settle for mediocrity. And that was my great fear. I think to some extent still is, that I'm working with, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But I realized, like I said earlier, if you have the desire to do great things, you will do great things. But you have to let go of the insecurity that you might not, that you might fail. Because, again, you have no right but to do your will. And so if you do your will, you will get there. It's set in stone. You will get there. But you have to not be insecure that, well, what if it doesn't work? And that's why I think it's taking a long time for me. I think, among other reasons, but I think that's the main reason that it's been so indirect, is because I was very insecure. I was very unsure about it. I didn't know. I was afraid to embrace the idea that I could do great things. I became jaded. So recently I've opened up to that again.
And look where you are now.
Yeah. And things are just, we've been commenting, Eleanor and I have been commenting. Things are just working out. Things are just falling into place. I don't know where it's going, but things are just falling into place. So a big part of it, just as a final point, is that you just have to let it unfold as it does. Yeah. Be satisfied where you are. Where you are is perfect. And know that you will accomplish your true will, but don't need it to be today.
Yeah.
You will get there. And you will get there faster if you are okay with where you are today. I've pushed against where I was for years. I just wanted to get to tomorrow, to the future where everything was working out. And that's, I think, the second reason why it didn't. Because I wanted it so badly that I wasn't okay where I was. You have to be okay where you are. Yep. And then you will get there. You can't get, Abraham has a saying, a miserable journey does not have a happy ending. And so just be okay with where you are, and you will get there. Being okay with where you are is not settling. It's just saying, this is where I am today. I'm not going to be there for long. I'm not going to be there tomorrow or, at some point in the near future. But I'm there today, and it's okay. This is where my path has brought me. And I know I will continue on to better and better things. But this right now is okay. You have to be at peace with what is before you can have more. So that would be my biggest suggestion. So I hope this helps. This was a lot of stuff today. I mean, I wanted to talk about our experience with the Gnostic Mass, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more experiences as we go through.
Of course.
On the 21st, we have the baptism going on, which should be interesting. It's a little weird. Again, baptism in a non-Christian church. There was a little resistance with that, but I'm excited about it. I want to, because I want to explore this, but it's baptism? That's a Christian term to me. So that was a little weird.
And they use wine to baptize.
Yeah, water and wine.
Yes,
water and wine.
The point is, it's just weird. Wine? Okay.
So that'll be on the 21st, and I think that'll be really exciting. And then we have other things going on after that. But we'll have lots to share, I think, as time goes on. So, but I hope that this was helpful. And if you do have any questions or comments about what we discussed today, feel free to check out the show notes, and you can leave comments there as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we're always happy to answer your questions. You can go to darkascent.org/DA017. And also, if you would like to join the Circle of Darkness, which is our monthly print newsletter, we're not quite sure what this month's topic will be yet. I'm thinking about natural magic, but with the recent events it may be different. But we always talk about something deeper. I mean, it's like a 6,000 word newsletter, so it goes a lot deeper. Last month's was about communicating with spirits, and I was like, maybe I'll get 2,000 words out of it, and I'll have to choose one or two other articles. And then I was like, this turned into 6,000 words. I don't know how it happened, but it literally did. And it was more in depth than I've ever gone ever before with any other discussion about spirits, so I go a lot deeper with this stuff in the newsletter. So if you want to check that out, go to darkascent.org/circle. So I hope you enjoyed our podcast. By the way, a quick announcement. We will be changing this to every 2 weeks now because Eleanor won't be there. I am starting a second podcast called Money Without Tears, which is a little pun on Aleister Crowley's book Magic Without Tears. Money Without Tears, which is a totally, I don't want to say not spiritual, but it's more down to earth than is this podcast. Not so far out there because I want to reach a broader audience. But it's about my other passion, which is money and finance. And that will be beginning next Friday, May 17th. So check out that podcast as well. And if you're interested in money, if you want to gain more control over your finances, definitely check that out. And it'll be just me in that podcast. So Eleanor doesn't want anything to do with money.
I wouldn't help you.
So that's where I'll be next Friday. So check that out if you miss us.
Do it. He's amazing. I'm telling you.
And then, and I didn't pay her to say that. And then, and then on the following Friday, the 23rd, we'll be back here for another episode of the Dark Ascent podcast. So once again,
right after the baptism.
Yeah, right after. We'll tell you how it went. Yeah. So actually, we'll have to record it before then, unfortunately. So we'll tell you about it soon, though.
Oh, true.
So,
I forgot about that.
But thank you again for listening, everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks for another episode of the Dark Ascent podcast. Thank you for listening. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Love is the law. Love under well.